If you find this video worthy of interest, even if you don't agree with it, could you please give it a like to boost its circulation by YouTube? Thank you. Something that Charlie Kirk's killer and leading US Democrats have actually gotten right is that the struggle between today's liberal left progressivism and ordinary common sense people is a war. It isn't ordinary politics, it's war, a very real war between real enemies. It's not a battle of ideas, as many have either mistakenly or dishonestly been calling it. It's a battle between ideas and life itself, which is why from its beginning it's been deadly serious. It has been a war of words, because words can both articulate ideas and express life. Ideas are necessary, but they can't be their own centres without becoming lifeless. And when ideas become lifeless, it's only a matter of time before they generate violence against life. Charlie Kirk called his organisation Turning Point. It was a good choice because a turn in direction is what's desperately needed after an earlier turn in direction in the mid-1960s. A great many progressive liberals romanticise the 1960s because they see it or remember it as a decade of heroic revolutionary struggle against racism and against the inhuman, life-destroying military-industrial complex that governed our Western civilization. But as ever, we revolutionaries made our revolution in our own image, and we were far from perfect. Our individualism and ideals were selfish and naive, and we turned our imperfectly formed Christian societies into hell on earth. There was always a profound contradiction in the 60s revolution in which we turned individualism against nature. We espoused love of nature in our environmentalism, yet in our sexual revolution we showed our hatred of the nature of love itself. In the name of personal fulfillment, we waged war on anything and everything that unnecessarily frustrated the pleasure principle. But our measure of necessity was materialism, which is just a set of ideas based on the key one that everything boils down to matter and material causality. It's the anti-Christian idea that we inherited from the European Enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution. The problem is that nature becomes unrecognizable if we try to understand it by reducing it to a vast web of material processes connected to each other by nothing more than physical causation. Not a soul on this earth actually experiences life as being just that. Yet this is how, in our modernity, we've come to think about it. And when that's how we think about it, that's how we behave towards it. Even now, in our climate change panic, we still see our world as a physical thing, supporting physical processes that we've knocked out of kilter by burning millions of tons of fossil fuels, but which we can knock back into kilter with the technical fix of supposedly renewable energies. Lithium mines, amongst other things, give the lie to that designation, but the lie signifies a delusional illusion, and self-righteous progressivism can't bear to admit that its ideals are illusory and delusional. This is just one example. Those also rooted in the 60s revolution who from the beginning called out this delusion, people like Edward Goldsmith, the editor of the Ecologist magazine, were very early on branded as eco-fascists and drummed out of the left-captured Green movement. The most socially revolutionary development of the 60s was the invention and mass distribution of the contraceptive pill, strongly opposed by the Catholic Church, which almost alone anticipated what would come of it. At the time, this was heralded as a breakthrough in family planning. What it actually heralded was the breakthrough of biologically inconsequential recreational sex. Feminists promoted this as key to liberating women from the domination of men. But what it actually did was liberate men from responsibility for the natural consequences of their sexual behaviour, driving millions of women into dependence on the state, which massively boosted the role of the bureaucratic state in civil society and the size and status of the bureaucratic class who run it. The general lineaments of all of this were clearly foreseen by George Orwell in the 1940s. But in popular culture now, Orwell is seen as a writer of science fiction and futuristic allegory. This despite the fact that 1984, the title of his most famous book, has come and gone, and his dystopian future is far worse in its insidiousness than anything he imagined. Another example, legal abortion, was presented when first contemplating its legislation as an evil that would be better than the evil of illegal backstreet abortions, which women would only seek in dire circumstances and which would only be permitted after fetuses became capable of survival outside their mothers' wombs. In the minds of progressive liberals, these were always empty words, because combined with the liberating effects of the pill, which wasn't 100% effective, but hugely increased the number of women having casual sex with men, the actual number of legal abortions turned out to be massively higher than their reassurances promised, as was the later political pressure from feminists to relax the conditions in which abortions were permitted to make it easier and easier to have one. Now feminists call for, and in the UK have legally secured, the woman's right to choose to have an abortion even right up to term, long after the fetus has become viable and the unborn baby is indistinguishable from any already born. What was originally portrayed as a lesser evil has, by now, become nothing short of a moral abomination indistinguishable from infanticide, a holocaust in its scale and character, which women are being given the right to perpetrate on their unborn babies purely as a matter of individualistic feminist principle. So is it any wonder that in this world that the 60s revolution created, a young man who loves another young man who believes himself to be and comports himself as a woman and believes he has the right to expect everyone else to treat him as one, considers those who refuse to give his loved one that right to be immoral monsters who forfeited their right to live as they wish because of their depriving his beloved of his right to do the same. The reason why evidently millions now think and feel like this is because they've been cut off by their political discourse from nature. They have absolutely no idea what nature really is and experience themselves as willful minds in possession of purely physical bodies that by right they can enjoy as they wish as long as they don't harm others' physical bodies. They are completely unaware of what a radical departure this is from the Western norm since its emergence as a cultural identity. When others demand naturalness of them and oppose wantonness or unnatural obscenity, they sincerely believe these to be inhuman demands that are the equivalent of denying them life itself. This is where we now are, and I think it's obvious that progressive liberals' condemnations of Charlie Kirk's murder, even apologies for it in some cases, have been begrudging and empty of sincerity. In truth, most actually see it as justified killing, not murder, which is how they've seen abortion for over 50 years. It's not necessary to be a Christian to love nature, but thankfully many are now realizing that governed by Christian values, the most elementary and precious elements of human nature were safe and secure. They aren't now, and this is unacceptable.